Hello everyone, it's Jade from Boho Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. I know it is ridiculous that I look like this. It's April and I am dressed for winter. This time last year, I was getting sunburn at a food festival in a beautiful big field. Literally, I left the food festival looking like a lobster. Where is the warm weather? Throughout March, I managed to finish 4 books, so let's dive into them. The first book I finished was called Real Food for Pregnancy by Nichols. I decided to read this. I read it over a period of time when I found out that I was pregnant, because I was like, right, let me see what experts have to say about what I can put into my body. It's something that I was, and still am very concerned about. I won't eat soft cheeses like feta or brie or camembert, even if it's cooked, which I know apparently you can do. I won't have anything that's not pasteurized, and I won't have something that's undercooked or blue, and I normally love that kind of stuff. So for me, it's been hard, and I have been a paranoid mess. So I was really hoping to get something beneficial from this book. Can you see the face? I didn't get it. A lot of research went into this book, okay, that's apparent, and yes, a lot of it was insightful and interesting, very interesting. There was just a lot I personally didn't agree with, and I say personally very strongly because I know a lot of people have very different views on what they believe they can and can't do in pregnancy, and that's absolutely fine. You do you, I'll do me. I have a friend in South Africa who is in her 3rd trimester. Actually, I mean, the date right now, she's probably actually giving birth as we speak, but she, throughout her whole pregnancy, was eating sushi, as in raw salmon. She was drinking wine. She was doing all sorts of stuff, sleeping on her back. Everything that they say that you should not do, she did. I know that does not fly with me at all. Also, I mean, just the fact that you can't hold off from having a glass of wine for 9 months while you are growing and nurturing a child inside of you that is your child, your future, your love, that shows, to me, a problem. I'm sorry, personal opinion there, but I love wine more than the average person, I'm sure. The second that I found out that I was pregnant, I stopped drinking, and it was the easiest decision of my life. I didn't need it, I didn't want it. Yeah, sometimes Anthony comes home and he'll have a glass of wine in front of me and stuff, and we tease each other, and I say, oh, or put a little sad face or something, but I am more than happy sipping on my fruit juice while he has a glass of wine or a beer or a Jack Daniels or something. That's absolutely fine to me. For the 9 months, maybe plus, that I'm not going to be drinking, I am more than happy with it, because as I'm speaking right now, right this second, my little son is kicking inside my belly, and I just love him so much. So he's worth everything that I have to give up. Absolutely. Anyway, back to the point of the book. There's so many things that people tell you to avoid in pregnancy or not ingest, whereas this book is just yeah, go ahead and eat things like oysters. I was like, what? In fact, they say that oysters is extremely good for you while pregnant, and yeah, I gather that they mean that they should be cooked oysters, but still, no. It's like prawns. Other people I know that are pregnant have been munching prawns that are cooked. I love prawns more than the average person, just like wine, but I'm just not eating it right now because any type of risk, the smallest little thing that could go wrong, would devastate me. So I just can't do it. Why would I do something that could potentially even slightly risk harming my baby? No. So yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of accuracy in this book, but I couldn't take it seriously after it told me to go and eat oysters. I just didn't really care what it had to say, and to be honest, the rest of it just seemed like a pile of crap anyway. It was talking about toxins and non-stick frying pans and all sorts of different vaccinations, and it just irritated me. I mean, I don't know, it was just an odd book, and I don't recommend it whatsoever if you're pregnant. Lots of people that I know have actually personally read it and enjoyed it, but it wasn't for me. Then going on to a book that I freaking loved. You might know what that is by now. The first book in the Six Tudor Queens series, Katherine of Aragon by Alison Weir. So I decided, now that I have made the UK my permanent home, I need to, you know, soak up some of this. Like, the history around me is so rich and there's so much of it everywhere. And I didn't know anything. You know, when Anthony and I go and we travel to all these places and stuff, he loves reading all these like little historic boards and stuff and learning about the places we go to. And to be honest, like, I normally, in those situations, I skim read some of the boards if I'm that interested, but I much prefer just looking at things and then walking away, not actually knowing the actual history. So now that I am actually like investing my time into the Tudor period and reading up about what really happened back in that day, I am fascinated, I am obsessed, I'm loving it so much. So much so that I am literally begging Anthony to take me on like a Tudor tour of England, which is obviously kind of impossible because they were all over the place. Obviously we can go to some places, but yeah, just to find places that looked like in that Tudor time and has some of that, like, that history to it. I would love to see that. So yeah, I just adored this book so much. And to be honest, I bought book one of the Six Tudor Queens over a year ago, I believe now, but I held off from reading it, A, because it was historical fiction, which isn't my normal type of thing, and B, because it's a chunky book. It's about like that big, and it was just a bit daunting for me, so I held off. And then eventually I was like, right, let me just get to it because this is thick and I want to read it before baby comes and see what I think of the series. Well, now I can't put the series down. I'm already halfway through book 2. So the book starts in, you know, the early 1500s. It's following young Princess Cecilia, her betrothal to Prince Arthur at the age of 3. She had to wait until the age of 16 to set sail for England and marry him. And then when she got to England, she had to learn all these new British customs and just the way of life. And if that's not hard enough, Catalina, soon to be anglicised Katherine, she discovers and you know, quickly sees, blatantly obvious, that her husband to be is very sick. And soon after their union, Prince Arthur passes away. And she just suffers the most painful and horrific treatment through the years. And this horrible long wait starts again for Henry, Arthur's younger brother, becomes of age for Katherine to marry him, which she eventually does. And this marriage in the book, it's considered lawful because the marriage between Katherine and Arthur is said to have never been consummated. The book goes into really fine detail from like 1501 to 1536, and it's just beautifully done. It details her genuine love and that blossoming relationship that she has with Henry. It goes into like the heartache and the tragic loss of so many of her children and the failure of producing Henry a male heir, becoming a mother to her one surviving child and daughter, Mary, and going through things like menopause, which back then, you know, no one really understood what it really was. And at one stage Henry was like, oh, you've got a disease. And yeah, like it's just absolutely fascinating to read about it. There's, you know, you read all about this chaos of what happens when the king starts his obsession with Anne Boleyn, and that obviously in turn changes the course of history forever and produces so much bloodshed and tears and agony for not just, you know, the court, but the entire of the world, of the UK, of everything. I think one of the reasons I'm so surprised I like this book as much as I did is because it has that political element to it that I would normally hate, as well as a religious kind of side of things. Those two things are very heavy in the book, but it didn't affect me. I was still just lapping it up. I couldn't put this book down. Alison Weir just captured my attention so artfully. Yeah, I can't fault it. And Katherine as a character in a book, even though, you know, she was a real person, she's she's so inspirational to read about, so strong and just incredible. It does sadden me how much she loved Henry, like genuinely really adored him up to her dying breath, even when he treated her so poorly. I mean, obviously, if a book like that was written in today's day and age, then it would be a different story, but because it was the times back then and it's something that really happened, it didn't make me like the book or the story any less. For a true story, Weir just made this book so easily readable, gripping and fantastic. I just experienced so many emotions throughout this read, from anger and frustration to happiness and even love. It was an absolute delight. I don't say this very often. I think I've only ever said it really once or twice before, but this is honestly one of the best books I have ever read. So needless to say, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. That is saying something. That is not something I award very often, but wow, I actually think that this book, and it might be the only book since Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer, which I read years ago, that I enjoyed more than Into the Wild. I loved it. Then, to put things on a bit more of a sour note, I read Leave the World Behind by Rumaan, which is about Amanda and Clay, and they take their children on this trip to rural Long Island to get away from the hustle and bustle of New York. However, they arrive and turns out that something's happening in the world, and this couple arrives needing to seek shelter there, and they're claiming to be the owners of the house, but they're a bit like skeptical of it, but they're now like torn, like should they let them in, what should they do? And that gave it a very like The Strangers vibe, and The Strangers is one of my absolute all-time favorite movies on Netflix. It's brilliant. Definitely a horror that you should add to your list if you enjoy horrors. It had so much promise from that premise, but it just lacked any thrill whatsoever, and to be frank, I hated it. You know, it's dystopian, which I don't enjoy at all. The racial element to it just irked me, and there were just a number of sexual descriptions in the book that just, like, why were they added in? They didn't need to be there. Like, I don't need to read about some dad's cock doing sun salutations to the sun and some 16-year-old boy's porn fetishes. Like, I don't know, it was just an odd, weird book that I hated it. It's polar opposite. I loved The Six Tudor Queens. I despised Leave the World Behind, and that's really sad because this is a book that I bought longer than a year ago and had been on my shelf for so long. I'd been so excited to read it, and it was such a disappointment. Lastly, I read Where Rainbows End by Cecilia Ahern, who wrote P.S. I Love You. And this book, Where Rainbows End, is actually based on the movie Love, Rosie, which has been one of my favourite movies for forever. I've absolutely loved it always. So I'd always wanted to read the book, and then I saw it on Amazon, like a secondhand copy, really cheap. I think it was like £1 or something. So I was like, right, let me just get it. And I listened to it on Audible. It was so quick and easy to read. It's about this pair of friends called Rosie and Alex, and they have been friends since childhood. Everyone around them seems to know that there's something between them but them. They are like adamant they're just mates. And the book kind of follows them through the years, from the beginning of writing silly little notes to each other in class and teasing each other and growing up a little bit, to where boys kind of stuck to boys and girls were with girls, and how that kind of affected Rosie more than Alex, because Alex didn't want to invite her to a birthday party because she'd be the only girl there and stuff. And you know, it's sucky when they're really best friends, and then growing up and talking about like relationships with each other, and yeah, it was such a sweet experience to read something over such a long period of time, this special friendship between two people. And then one day, as the book and the story goes along, and all these letters and IMs are exchanged, because the whole book is told through letters and instant messages and emails to these two people. Rosie's life changes forever when she finds out that she's pregnant. Her future studies and her dream career just come crashing down as she realises that she's got to prioritise different things in life now. But regardless, fate has a way of working out and bringing these two together in the end. This is a book that I would highly recommend if you need something quick, engaging, and really feel good, but at the same time as being feel good, there is so much emotion throughout the book because it's told over such a long period of time, with these two being friends since childhood. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that happens throughout the book and in their lives. You know, they lose people die, they lose dreams and have to like get through certain turmoils, and that's all detailed very vividly in the book. And there's so many emotions that this book holds that makes it so beautiful, but very raw and honest, and something that it can have the ability to make you laugh and smile, but also make you cry. And I listened to it on Audible, and I have to say that I was surprised at how much went into the audiobook, all the Irish accents and the little bits of music in between the chapters and stuff. It made it such a pleasant experience. So yeah, I gave that one a 4 out of 5 stars. Other than that, I have been reading the second book in the Tudor Queen series by Alison Weir, which is following Anne Boleyn's story. I'm about halfway through now, but I will leave the full review for that in my wrap up whenever I finish the second book, hopefully in April. But that's it for now. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.